right, we are finally live. Hello and happy Saturday for those of you who are joining live today. My apologies for running a few minutes behind. We were having some technical difficulties this morning, but appreciate those of you who are joining live, and for those of you who are watching after the fact, welcome to another video in my Neville Goddard lecture series. And this series is quickly becoming one of my favorite things to delve into and to dissect and break apart for you guys. And if it's your first time watching one of the videos from the series and not quite sure what this is about, we're here to basically dissect and discuss Neville Goddard's teachings, his works, his writings, his lectures, and really help to make sure that we are absorbing the message that he was aiming to get across. Today we are noticing a lot of oversaturation. We're noticing a lot of content, and it's very, very easy for the original message to get lost in translation when there's many different schools of thought, many different opinions, variations, translations. So it's always good to come back to the root. It's always good to come back to the man's lectures himself. And today I am especially excited to dive into his lecture titled Imagining Creates Reality. And this one, he actually had two different lectures by the same title. So one was a little bit more popular than the one that I'm going to be sharing today, but nonetheless, an incredibly important topic to dive into. Because this is the premise of all of this. This is the premise of, as far as the law is concerned, imagining creates reality. Or should we say imagining selects reality, because creation is finished. But as I usually do in my videos, I'm going to be toggling back and forth between screen sharing and reading straight from the lecture, and then sort of coming back and breaking down what we just went over and what we just read. So this lecture he gave on October 30th, 1967. And I will go ahead and share the screen here in just a moment. I'm not going to be reading word for word through all of it. There's actually just a few highlights and pieces that I feel are really, really important as far as understanding this concept is concerned. But I will leave the link to the lecture down in the description box if you want to read this through in its entirety, which I absolutely recommend you do. Just due to a bit of the time constraints today, I'm going to just be going over certain parts where he's speaking specifically to the concept of imagining creates reality. But without further ado, let's go ahead and jump on in. Let me see here. Oh, there we go. I think most of you know that I firmly believe that imagining creates reality. By the way, this first paragraph is the main reason I wanted to select this lecture today. This is arguably the most important part in all of this lecture. So highlight this note, highlight these right here. I think most of you know that I firmly believe that imagining creates reality. I personally have proved it, and I think the majority of you have. If someone now complains, having confessed that they believe it, that what they originally imagined is not as good as and as wonderful as they are now experiencing, then ask them, why are you now remembering and not imagining? If I can say, I remember when, then I am not now imagining that. So am I really putting this into practice? I can say, well, all right, I believe it, but I once imagined something, and it's not as I am now experiencing in my life. Just simply say, you really believe that imagining creates reality, and your original imagining state was. They'll say yes. Then what on earth are you doing when you say, I once imagined it? then they are not now imagining. God's name is I am. Man finds it so difficult to keep this in the present tense. It's always outside of self. So I want to break this down because this is so incredibly important. When I say so incredibly important, because we all do this. We are all guilty or have been guilty at one point or another. I believe in these teachings. I believe in this law. I believe that this is true. However, I once imagined this thing and it hasn't happened yet. I think Neville handles this perfectly by saying, what do you mean you once imagined? Like, why aren't you imagining? Remembering something is not living in the end. Remembering something separate is not living in the end. Now, God's name is always I am in the present tense. So he's basically really emphasizing here, to what state are you actually dwelling in? To what are you actually perceiving? Because if you are saying, well, I imagined this thing and it didn't happen, you're certainly not living from the end. And Neville had a wonderful way with words sometimes and calling it out. And again, this is important because we've all done this. We've all been there. But what on earth are we doing when we say, I once imagined it? If you say you once imagined it, then you are not now currently living from that new state. God's name is I am. And man finds it difficult to keep himself in the present tense. This is the most true thing I've ever heard. We are very, very, very rarely ever living in this moment, like really centering ourselves in the present. More often than not, we are fixated on the past or the future. It's always outside of self. So we want to be incredibly mindful. The point to this is we want to be incredibly mindful, because it's not about what you once imagined. It's about, what are you imagining? Who are you conscious of being? What are you assuming and accepting is true in this moment? Because on the one hand, you cannot claim to have faith and then say, but I imagined and it didn't work. That's incompatible. So again, one of the main reasons I wanted to share this lecture today was just in that first paragraph alone, but let's definitely continue because there's a lot more to highlight. Now, when you imagine, may I tell you, you may, and chances are you will, influence others. But do not think in terms of influence. Think only in terms of clarity of form. This is also super important, guys. Take note. Do not think in terms of influence. Think only in terms of clarity of form. For instance, someone will say to you, I want a better position. I want more money. I want greater responsibility. All right, now you conceive a scene and give all your effort to clarifying form, just form, like drawing a picture. So you've conceived a scene. It could be that you're giving a party, giving the party, or they are giving the party, and then you will raise your glass, or they will raise it, and toast the occasion. A better job, more money. Don't think in terms of influencing some superior on the job, like the one you will call, say, a boss. Forget him. He could drop dead tonight. He could be discharged tonight. Don't think in terms of anyone outside of the clarity of form. What would imply that you have it? Well, if I gave a party tonight for you who got it, or you gave the party and invited me, and I am your guest, and then we sat down the table and came to that occasion to raise a glass and toast. So you will toast the event, and I will raise mine and drink with you. Well, now, that is not influencing or thinking of influencing anyone in this world. We're going to the end. So if you're going to apply this law, it's only dealing with form. You go to the end. then what form, what structure would imply that you have it? And forget anyone in this world that you may influence. So I'm not going to deny that every imaginal act influences, but you don't have to put any interest on influencing anyone in this world. Leave them alone. Leave everyone alone. They are not really the cause. You are the cause. Your imaginal act is the cause. So what do you want in this world? Forget everyone else. You may have someone employing you that you may have $1 billion, a private fund, like Hughes, like the Rockefellers, like that crowd. They have it, but they are not causing anything in your world. They could all drop dead tonight, did you know, and vanish from this world and leave not a trace behind. The present generation of the Rockefellers know nothing of their great-grandfather who made it. They must be told by the president, who are simply grandsons of that fortune, and they will tell them, and they will wisely modify it, and others will modify it. But who knows of the original one, who really went out and checked everything, the figures, and so he is gone. So, got to break down this too. Because this is, once again, incredibly important. Don't think about influence, think about clarity of form. By that, what Neville is saying here is, do not concern yourself with influencing other people to make something happen. Do not concern yourself. In the case, let's say you're trying to manifest a specific person. Do not think about them being different or showing up different in the 3D. Don't fixate on how they're going to show up for you. Don't worry about what has to happen for that bridge to unfold. Focus on clarity of form. Focus on the end state. Focus on the end scene. Something that implies that you are now experiencing what you desire. You already have it. It's already yours. And give clarity of form to that. Give as much detail and as much, give as much detail and flesh it out to the best of your ability. A lot of cases, it's much easier if we do something such as a congratulatory scene, hearing confirmation, or a celebration, a party, where that is confirmation of the good news, that you have been successful in getting your person back or getting the job or promotion that you've wanted. But too often we're fixated on how do we influence other people. And we have to drop that notion. Let's continue. Let me see. Whoops. So you will influence people. No question about it. Because why? Everything in this world is yourself pushed out. You're only influencing yourself. But don't think in terms of anyone on the outside of self. What do you want? When you know exactly what you want, then put all your attention on clarity of form. So I would have a little dinner party, and I'd have the whole thing set up just right. Then what after that am I imagining? So to confess or to complain that I once imagined, and my original imaginal act was far greater than this, is to confess that I am not now imagining. If imagining creates reality, then forget the memory picture. What am I imagining? So this is a part of fantastic mystery that we're trying to get over here. Yes. So to be clear, yes, our aim and desires is to see the 3D changes that we desire. Like, we do want to see people influenced, and that is what happens. Neville's not discarding that. He's not saying, don't worry about influencing others. That will happen on its own. If you go to the end, if you just focus on that end state where you are now experiencing already having it, you're going to see that reflected naturally. You don't need to go in there consciously and do anything. You will influence other people, no question about it, because everyone and everything in this world is you pushed out. We're not even influencing others, we're influencing ourselves. And once again, emphasizing at the end here, to confess or to complain that I once imagined, and my original imaginal act was far greater than this, is to confess that I am not now imagining. If imagining creates reality, then forget the memory picture. What am I imagining now in this present moment? It's so easy for us to forget that. Let's continue. I'm going to make a pretty giant leap here because he's gonna go into a story and kind of delve into a different topic for a moment. And Neville had the tendency of doing that with his lectures sometimes, which I think contributes a little bit to the difficulties that people have with reading his works, because he can sort of bounce all over the place a little bit, because he was just basically freestyling. I mean, he was just going up there and speaking whatever came to his mind. So for the sake of trying to keep this to the topic of imagining creates reality and highlighting the important things that I want you guys to take away, I'm going to do a leap here. But again, if you want to read the lecture in its entirety, I do recommend doing so, just for the sake of time. All right, but to come back to his level, may I tell you, imagining creates reality. You can start on this level. The first words given to us by the ones who reveals it, who come to reveal it, is simply repent and believe in the story, believe in the gospel, the story of salvation. Mark 1:15. For only repentance, which is a radical change of attitude, could simply take this powerful imagination and burst it through this world of death. This is the world of death. So I ask everyone to simply take it literally, and day after day, simply test it. Test it. And he goes on to talk about the experience of the promise, which starting next week, next lecture, I'm going to start delving more into the promise. I'm going to start delving more into things such as quantum shifting or reality shifting, whatever you would want to call it. We're going to start getting into the lectures that go into the the deeper aspects of these teachings, such as the promise. But for today, so tonight, do not think of influencing your boss. Do not think of influencing anyone in this world. Think only of clarity of form. That's all you do. The creative imagination is concerned only in perfecting form. Now, when I perfect form, I'm going to influence others. No question about it. Every time that I have done something that is marvelous, others work to bring to pass. So I influence them. But I didn't think in terms of others. I thought only in clarity of form. When I wanted to go out to Barbados, when I wanted to get out of Barbados, when there were no ships, only 2 little ships and thousands trying to get out, I didn't think of influencing anyone. I asked my brother, who apparently had an influence. He had none. No one had influence. I simply walked up the gangplank. Clarity of form. If this is true, if I am walking up this gangplank, that it implies that I am sailing. Well, if it implies that I am sailing, someone is influenced. Do you know that 2,000 miles away in New York City, someone canceled their passage? They were afraid because war was still a little bit in the air. And we came out on a ship where someone 2,000 miles away was afraid to take. So they canceled it. So I did influence her choice. her decision, and others present who had the advantage of getting it before me, because it was an enormous list waiting, and it wasn't given to them. So I influenced the decision of the one who had the power to distribute whatever the ticket was. He justified it by saying, well, after all, there are only two beds in the stateroom, but the child is so small she could sleep with her mother, and therefore we could get 3 in instead of simply 2. So that's how they justified it. And so we came back with thousands waiting who preceded us in applying for that passage. So don't think in terms of influencing anyone in the world. Leave them alone. Don't influence your boss. Forget him. Don't influence anyone. Don't think of it. Notice how he's really, really driving this point home. Anytime that he's reiterating like crazy, it's take note. The minute you draw a line, you are encompassing energy. Anything in this world without an outline means nothing. Well, now, you just draw your outline and get all in it as much as you can. But get a clear picture. I'm giving a party tonight. I'm sitting at my table. My friends are present. One has been promoted, and this is in his honor. As we sit down, I raise my glass to toast him and tell all my friends he is now promoted to a certain point. That would imply greater responsibility, more money, and I am toasting to it. Stick to that, and don't really care who is influenced to bring it to pass. So important. The minute you think in terms of influence, you're taking this most fantastic miracle in the world and perverting it, bringing it down to so-called magic. Working against this, working against that, and I'm going to work against this one because she is working black magic and doing this because he doesn't want me. All that is nonsense. Forget all the people in the world. The whole vast world is yourself pushed out. So forget everyone in this world. Not one person in this world has any power to hold you back or to promote you. You are self-promoted or self-held back. Just simply think in terms of clarity of form. Now, to be abundantly clear, in case it hasn't been made, what Neville means by clarity of form is your imaginal act, your scene, what you are imagining that would imply your desire has already come to pass. So focus only on construction of a scene that makes it very clear that you are now experiencing reality in this way. In Neville's example, he imagined for a friend who wanted a promotion. So Neville imagined a party where the man was celebrating his promotion and Neville was giving a toast to the man. That implies everything got handled. That implies that a bridge unfolded and he ultimately received that promotion. We don't focus on the boss. We don't focus on what the other person needs to do. We don't focus on any of it. And I like that he is really reinforcing this part because it is so easy for us to get stuck in thinking that we're influencing other people, thinking that we're here to change other people. And so our focus and attention goes into, how do I change this person? Or how do I get this outcome ultimately? None of that is our concern. None of that is our concern. We just need to worry about the clarity or the naturalness of feeling in that end state. Because when we have this scene, when we outline the scene, we also want to step into it and we want to imagine it as though it is something natural for us. And that's something that we don't want to overlook either. And I believe he gets into that a little bit here in just a second. The feeling it natural aspect. So let's continue. Yeah, here it is. Now listen to these words of Blake. If the spectator could enter into these images, Now listen to these words carefully. Enter into, not observe them. If the spectator could enter into these images in his imagination, approaching them on the fiery chariot of his contemplative thought, if he could make a friend and a companion of any one of these images of wonder, then he would rise from the grave, then he would meet the Lord in the air, and then he would be happy. If he could only enter into one of these images in his imagination, this is important. All right, so I want to be, let's say, in New York. Well, now, I can see one of a dozen hotels that I lived in and entered. Now, could I enter into any one of these images in my imagination? How would I do it? Approach it on the fiery chariot of my contemplative thought. So I contemplate it. I contemplate it, and then I enter it. Well, how will I know that I'm in it? Because physically, I'm here in Los Angeles. I think when I think I am in it, I think of this place. Well, if I see it as I now see it, I am not in New York City. I must see it as I would see it were I in New York City. Where would I be? 3,000 miles to the west of me. That's where I would be. If I enter into that image, in my contemplative thought, I will see every part of the world related to that place that I have entered. So if the spectator could enter into these images, his contemplative thought, then he will arise from the grave. What grave? This is my grave. I'm always here in a grave. When man enters the world of flesh, it's eternal death. So I rise from it. I leave it behind me for a moment and go into that place. And then I view the world from it as though it were true. Then I will not only rise from the grave, I will meet my Lord in the air. Who is my Lord? I am. I'll meet my Lord in the air and I'll be happy. Am I not happy in what I am doing? Well, that's what he's telling us. And that is his vision of the Last Judgment. How man actually does these things. So you and I can actually enter into the state desired, dwell in that state as though it were true. And, may I tell you, no power in this world can stop it. It can't stop it from becoming a fact in the world. You don't influence anyone deliberately, but you influence everyone. As Sir James Jean said, a man on this planet cannot raise a hand without influencing the farthest star in the world. It is this unified form. So let's absolutely break this down. Once again, this is important. He's speaking here essentially about thinking from your desire, thinking from the end versus thinking of it, and how we want to be when we are imagining, when we are going into imagination, how we want to be perceiving, how we want to be experiencing, because it's not that we just observe it, it's that we are in it. We are actually in the imaginal act. We put ourselves in the action. So if we could enter into these images in contemplated thought and approach them on the fiery chariot of his contemplative thought. So what Neville is saying here is that if we can enter into these imaginal acts as though we are actually living from that state and approaching it with that contemplative thought, then nothing you can do, nothing is going to be able to stop it from coming to pass. The example that Neville gave here about, let's say he desires to be in New York City. Well, right now, currently, as he gave the speech, he was in Los Angeles. So if he wants to go to New York City, he wants to, in his imaginal act, put himself in a hotel in New York that implies that he's there, but he wants to, in his imaginal act, he's perceiving it like Los Angeles is 3,000 miles to my west. So he's not imagining it thinking I'm in LA and New York is over there. He's actually putting himself in it. And that's a huge distinction, a really important distinction, because to put yourself in the scene, but still aware that you are currently where you are physically, you're just thinking of your desire and, well, effectively daydreaming. So if we could enter into these images and not just observe them, if we can put ourselves in the act as though we're doing it in the 3D and we are perceiving it from that state, not where we are now, that's all we need to do. That's clarity of form. That ties into the whole concept of clarity of form. Let's continue. And so you practice it and you prove it, and you can go from wherever you are to wherever you want to be. If you stop trying to influence people to help you, forget them. They'll have to aid. Not aid in the sense that they're doing you a favor. They've got to do what they do because you've done what you did. You dare to assume that you are, and you name it, and then everyone must play the part. But everyone. Why? Because it is yourself pushed out. Again, it's so important to emphasize this because the ego mind is always in problem-solving mode. It's always in detective mode. It's always trying to fix. It's always trying to solve. How is this going to come about? How can I possibly make these changes? How can I get this person to show up differently than how they have? And we focus way too much on that aspect instead of just going to the end and getting very clear on that end state and what would imply that everything is already completed. Everything has already worked out in your favor. That is the only thing that we are concerning ourselves with, bar none, period. Let me see here. And again, he talks a lot here about the promise. I'm sorry that there's pockets that we're skipping over today just because of time. The time that it would take for me to read everything and break it down would be more than I have today. But I absolutely am going to be reading more about the promise starting next week and going into those deeper concepts. But for today, this is something that I just felt is a really important message for people to hear, this distinction, thinking of the end versus thinking from it, really getting clear on the fact that we're not trying to make somebody change. We're not trying to influence other people. People will be influenced, but that is only because everyone is you pushed out. By you changing, other people are going to, by default, have to change to reflect that. So I ask you tonight to just simply take this wonderful premise. Imagining creates reality. Go out and believe it. Don't try to influence anyone in this world. The world reflects what we are doing. Put all of your energies upon clarity of form. All right? If I occupied a certain desk, would that mean that I am now filling a certain position? Then go and occupy that desk. Get it clear in my mind's eye, and as Blake said, if the spectator could enter into this image in his imagination, well, enter it. How do I know I'm in it? Just think of the world, and I'll think of the world and see it as I would see it were I in this state. I'm going to read that point again. How do I know I'm in the state? Just think of the world, And I'll think of the world as and see it as I would see it were I in this state. If I am in this state, I would have to see the world in a certain manner. Well, then do it. Now, don't complain after you've done it that originally I imagined it. I will tell you, if you say it to me, then what are you doing now? Remembering and not still imagining. Now let us go into the silence. Oh, I love this man so much. He was no nonsense. And he was very good at cutting through a lot of the doubts that people had, or the things that all of us get caught up in. Well, I imagined it and it didn't happen. Why didn't it happen? Neville's saying, what do you mean you did imagine? Why are you not still imagining? Like, why did you stop imagining? Why did you stop going and occupying that state? Because by remembering, you're not living from the end. So, incredibly important distinctions. One thing that we have to remember: be present tense to as much and as often to your best ability. God's name is I am, always. So it is whatever I am conscious of being, whatever I am aware of and accept as true, that is what I will continue to see outpictured. What are you doing now, remembering and not still imagining? We have to keep that part in focus. Also, don't try to influence anyone. Instead, focus on clarity of form. Focus on that end state and living from that end state in imagination. How would you perceive the world from that end state? Down to the exact location. So I ask you tonight to just simply take this wonderful premise and go out and test it and believe it. So again, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I know there were swaths that we didn't go over, but I wanted to keep as much as possible to this topic because this is, again, something that a lot of people struggle with. Read the lecture in its entirety. It's a fantastic lecture down below. And we'll be going more into the concept of the promise and quantum leaping, giving some of Neville's accounts into that, into shifting. That's going to be coming up starting with the next video in the Neville lecture series. So I want to thank you guys for watching, those of you who are here live and those of you who are watching after the fact. If you have questions, of course, as always, drop them down in the comments below. Much love, much appreciation to each and every one of you. Take care and happy imagining. Think only in clarity of form, guys. Bye now.